Hello, and welcome to tier number 3 on my air purifier industry source rankings list. Okay, in the last video, I explained why general influencers in tier number 4 were kind of hit or miss when it comes to obtaining good information on air purification solutions. And even though they're not perfect, I'd say in general, they are definitely more trustworthy than the not to be trusted business owners in tier number 5, as the business owners are the least trustworthy sources to do testing on their own products and provide opinions on their products versus the competition. Now we are at tier number 3, and in tier number 3, we have peer-reviewed articles and studies. In this tier, we have university, government, and medical studies, tests, and publications. Some of the publications are also called peer-reviewed articles, where we'll oftentimes see the studies referred to as something like May et al. 2012 or Johnson et al. 2014, this type of verbiage. We can find these types of studies and tests on sites like PubMed, the National Library of Medicine, Cambridge University Press, and Science Direct, and others as well. On the surface, many of these peer-reviewed articles may appear to be very official, expertly conducted studies possessing very accurate test results. However, if we actually read and analyze some of them, we find that some of these studies and tests are typically not conducted by experts, and some of the other components of the tests are questionable to say the least. In the peer-reviewed studies and tests I've recently read and analyzed, I was actually very surprised by their amateurish testing methodologies, and they oftentimes used very inexpensive HEPA air purifiers in their tests, and then they tended to act like the few low-end HEPA units are somehow representative of the entire HEPA air purifier market. And there were some other problems as well, as we will see shortly. For example, this study was called Characterizing the Performance of a Do-It-Yourself DIY Box Fan and Filter, published online by Taylor and Francis, April 5th, 2022, from Aerosol Science and Technology. Sounds pretty legit, right? Well, they tested a CR box against 2 HEPA air purifiers, but they never tell us what the brands and names of the 2 HEPA air purifiers are. They only tell us the tobacco and smoke CADR of the units, and that one HEPA air purifier cost about $250, and the other unit cost about $100. That's it. That's all we know about them. And they just refer to them as HEPA number 1 and HEPA number 2. I mean, I can't believe anyone would do this. How can we compare a CR box to 2 HEPA air purifiers without identifying which HEPA air purifiers were tested? I mean, am I missing something here? Eventually they show us some colorful graphs, and the CR box seems to be performing better at most all metrics over HEPA number 1 and HEPA number 2. We can clearly see the bars for HEPA number 1 and HEPA number 2 are shorter for the CADRs, the clean air delivery rates. Gee, I wonder what 2 HEPA air purifiers these actually are. Now, who would conduct a test like this? It's like comparing 3 cars to each other for gas mileage, but we only know the brand and name of one of the cars in the comparison. For example, we'd say, so the test graph shows the Mazda CX-30 car had much better gas mileage than mysterious car number 1 and mysterious car number 2. I mean, if someone tried to do a test like that in the real world for cars, no one would trust the results, right? Not specifically identifying all the air purification solutions in a comparison test just does not make any sense to me. But that's just one of the issues. There are more issues here as well. Down here in the summary, they state, we have measured the filtration efficiency for particles greater than 0.5 microns of a DIY open source air filtration system, the Corsi-Rosenthal box, comprised of a box fan and MERV 13 filters. At the lowest speed, the clean air delivery rate for our Corsi-Rosenthal box is greater than 600 cubic feet a minute for a median particle diameter of 1.2 microns, demonstrating exceptional performance relative to most commercially available filter-based air cleaners. And they say earlier, the CADR values for the Corsi-Rosenthal box substantially exceed those of the particular commercial HEPA-based air cleaners used here. Yes, 2 mysterious HEPA units, and we don't even know which ones were tested. And now they're referring to an inexpensive $100 residential air purifier as a commercial HEPA-based air cleaner. But that is not an accurate description. It's just an inexpensive, low-level residential quality air purifier. There's nothing commercial about it. $100 will not get us a commercial HEPA air filtration solution. Okay? Then they state, for further comparison, no U.S. Energy Star certified air cleaners have CADR values for either tobacco smoke, dust, or pollen matching the CADR value for the CR box, even on low speed. Well, that may sound somewhat impressive on the surface. However, most HEPA air purifiers on the market have not officially been tested for a CADR rating by AHAM, so most HEPA air purifiers on the market don't have an official AHAM CADR rating. And B, some of the best filtering HEPA units on the market do not have an official CADR rating. So we can't act like all the HEPA air purifiers on the market have an official CADR rating, as most HEPA air purifiers do not, and some or even most of the best HEPA units don't have official CADR values. And C, we can't act like the CADR rating is the most important variable to figure out which air purifiers filter the best, as I made a video in the past about the problems associated with the CADR ratings and their testing methodologies. And one of the issues with the CADR ratings test is it only tests particles down to 0.5 microns. And this particular peer-reviewed study also only tested particles 0.5 microns in size and larger. So they did not test for the ultrafine filtering capabilities, and ultrafine particles make up 90% of the particles in the air that we breathe, and they are the most harmful to humans. So this test doesn't tell us anything about the ultrafine particle filtering capabilities of the units involved. Also, the recent ratings.com tests showed 5 air purifiers filtered better than a CR box, and the CR box had a much higher CADR rating than any of them. I mean, the Winix 5500 did get tested by AHAM, and its official dust CADR rating is only 243. Yet, it's still filtered better than the CR box, which according to this peer-reviewed study, must have had a CADR rating in the ballpark of 800 on high speed, right? I mean, that's what they say in the graph right here. So the CR box with a much higher CADR rating did not filter as well as the Winix 5500. And the CR box with a much higher CADR did not filter as well as the AHAM-tested Honeywell HPA 300, which had an official dust CADR of only 320. So those are just 2 examples of HEPA units with much lower official CADR values, yet they were tested and they filtered better for 0.5 and 0.3 micron particulate concentrations than the CR box with MER 13 filters and a much higher CADR rating. And like we saw in the video, the Dyson Big and Quiet, the Levoit Core 600S, and the Levoit Vital 200S, all of them also filtered better than the CR box, even though they didn't have official AHAM CADR testing results. So this peer-reviewed study puts way too much emphasis on the CADR ratings when it does not, by itself, tell us which air purifiers filter the best. I mean, they act like the CADR values are the only thing that matters. It kind of seems like they're trying to make the CR boxes appear to filter better than they actually do. And oh, by the way, looky here. When we look at the staff who conducted these tests and wrote this study, we see that there were 5 people involved in this so-called peer-reviewed study. And all of them are from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of California, Davis. Now, isn't that where Richard Corsi is the Dean of the College of Engineering? Why, yes it is. What a coincidence, huh? So Mr. Corsi, who puts the C in CR box, is the Dean of the College of Engineering at UC Davis, and all 5 of the people who conducted this study were also from UC Davis as well. Interesting, no? Well, it gets even better. What do we see here? Oh, look at that. Richard Corsi is one of the 5 people who conducted the testing in this peer-reviewed study, And he also was one of the authors as well. He's a contributor to this peer-reviewed study. I mean, what a coincidence. What are the chances? And as I mentioned, he is buddies with Mr. Rosenthal, who owns a company that makes MERV filters. And they both have their names on the CR box, Corsi, Rosenthal. So that's very similar to being the owner of an air purifier manufacturer, and we can't trust them to conduct unbiased tests on their own air purifiers. So why do we think Mr. Corsi doesn't have any conflicts of interest in this study? I mean, the CR box MERV 13 solution used in this study literally has his name on it, CR box. And it says here, author contributions, RDP, MNK, TP, and CDC made measurements. RDP and CDC analyzed data. All authors interpreted results, meaning Mr. Corsi as well, of course. RC, Richard Corsi, designed the DIY air filter, and that was very kind of him. CDC and RDP led the writing with contributions from all authors, including, of course, Mr. Corsi. So let's take a closer look at the 5 people who were involved in this peer-reviewed study. Well, Rachel was a student at UC Davis. Monet was a student at UC Davis as well. Teresa was a student at UC Davis as well. Christopher Kappa was an engineering professor at UC Davis. So we have 3 students and 1 professor. And Richard Corsi, of course, who was the dean of engineering for the school. Now, do we think any of these 3 students were going to challenge Mr. Corsi, the dean of engineering, on how the tests were going to be run or on how the results would be displayed? What about the engineering professor? Was he going to challenge Mr. Corsi, the dean of engineering, basically his boss, on how the tests were going to be run or on how the data was going to be interpreted or displayed? Are we serious? You mean a 20-something-year-old student or a professor is going to challenge the dean of the School of Engineering, who was kind of famous, by the way, a bit of a celebrity on campus? What are the chances they were going to challenge him on the data results or on how the tests were run? Sounds like that would be a career-limiting move, right? So we have the semi-famous dean of engineering with his name literally on the MERV solution being tested and 3 students and 1 professor under him. Let's ask ourselves, are those the ingredients for an objective test and study? Absolutely not. I mean, they may as well just have thrown Mr. Rosenthal in there as well to edit the final draft of this peer-reviewed study. You don't think, and I don't think we can say Mr. Corsi doesn't have any competing interests, like it states at the end of the study right here either. Competing interests. The authors declare no competing interests. Really? Well, if your name is on one of the solutions in the test, and you became famous from it, and you even have a Wikipedia page with you and the tested solution, then I think it's fair to say you have some skin in the game, so to speak, and a lot of motivation to make your solution appear to be superior, right? I mean, this is just common sense. If I put my name on a MERV 14 solution and I called it the DM box of magic, and D stands for me, Doug, and M stands for Mike, who is my buddy, and Mike just so happens to own a MERV 14 filter manufacturing plant in Georgia, and I'm the dean of engineering at Georgia University, and I gather a team of 3 students and 1 professor under me, and I run a test versus some other HEPA and MERV 13 solutions, and my MERV 14 DM box of magic beats all the other solutions in the test. Is everyone just going to be cool with those test results as if they're totally legit? And no one's going to think that I might have a conflict of interest? It is literally the same thing as a business owner conducting his own tests on air purifiers, okay? Let's just call it for what it is. And it's actually frightening that Aerosol Science and Technology would publish such a biased study and act like it's real science. I mean, it's got to make you wonder, what other articles have they approved of and published in the past in the name of science and scientific studies that might be just a little bit biased, right? That's a fair question to ask at this point. So the authors declare no competing interests. However, it seems to me, if you're getting credit for creating the CR box and your name is literally on the CR box and your buddy Rosenthal literally owns a MERV filter manufacturing plant and he is making millions of dollars in part off of research studies that show the CR box is performing better than HEPA solutions, I don't think we can say you don't have any competing interests. Do you? The official title for the study is Characterizing the Performance of a Do-It-Yourself DIY Box Fan Filter. But a more accurate title would have been Richard Corsi tests his very own Corsi-Rosenthal box with 2 low-end, average, mysterious HEPA air purifiers. Now, that would have been a much more accurate title, right? And look here, here's the CR Box Wikipedia page. And here's Mr. Corsi talking about CR boxes, and he is literally holding a Tex Air MERV filter for his demonstration right from Mr. Rosenthal's company. What a great way to boost sales. Right on the Wikipedia page, that's just some good old-fashioned marketing right there. He's not holding a 3M MERV filter. He's not holding a Lennox MERV filter, nor is he holding a Nordic Pure MERV filter. He's holding his buddy Rosenthal's Tex Air MERV filter. Now, does anybody think that's just a coincidence and he's not trying to increase Tex Air filter sales? And here's another one. This is a medical peer-reviewed article off of the Cambridge University Press, published January 31st, 2022, and it can also be found on Science Direct as well, called Effectiveness of Commercial Portable Air Cleaners and a Do-It-Yourself Minimum Efficiency Reporting Value, MERV, 13 Filter Box Fan Air Cleaner in Reducing Aerosolized Bacteriophage MS2. Now, that's a mouthful. So, in summation, they used a very inexpensive $80 tabletop HEPA unit in a room which was twice the size too large than what the manufacturer recommended for the air purifier. So what type of filtering results would we expect to get from a small, cheap HEPA air purifier in a space that is double the size too large for it to handle? A space that's twice the size too big for the unit to accommodate. Why even use the cheap undersized unit in the test if you're going to set it up to fail from the get-go? And then they show a graph which depicts how a CR box filtered better in the same space. This line right here is the cheap $80 undersized HEPA unit, and this line is the CR box. Well, would anyone be surprised by this? I don't see why anyone would include a grossly undersized unit like this in a test or comparison of solutions. And the other HEPA unit in the test, which is this line right here, this was a Germ Guardian 5-in-1, which currently retails for $98 on Amazon. So that also is a very inexpensive HEPA air purifier and definitely not one of the better filtering HEPA units on the market. So the official title of this test was Effectiveness of Commercial Portable Air Cleaners and a Do-It-Yourself Minimum Efficiency Reporting Value, etc., etc. But as we can see, a more accurate title would probably be 2 lower echelon, inexpensive, residential quality HEPA air purifiers, one of them completely undersized, tested with a do-it-yourself minimum efficiency reporting value, etc., etc. Now, that is a much more accurate title for the study, in my opinion. I mean, again, let's just call it for what it is. When I think of the words commercial portable air cleaner, I think of industrial type solutions, but I wouldn't consider either of these two HEPA units to be commercial, even though I know some folks who are not industry insiders will use the word commercial when describing any HEPA air purifier. Many of the actual HEPA air purifier manufacturers will call their more industrial units commercial, industrial, or air scrubbers if they have a lot of airflow. But as we can see, we sometimes see the people in these peer-reviewed studies refer to all HEPA air purifiers, even inexpensive $80 tabletop units, as commercial. That is not how the units are referred to in the industry, and I don't agree with that terminology. It makes them sound more industrial than they actually are. The two HEPA air purifiers used in this study are just residential quality units and in the lower echelon of that category as well. There's nothing commercial or industrial about them. And here's another example found on the National Library of Medicine site. We have this peer-reviewed study published May 14th, 2022, titled, Can 10 times cheaper, lower efficiency particulate air filters and box fans complement high efficiency particulate air, HEPA, purifiers to help control the COVID-19 pandemic? Another nice, very long title. So they compared multiple MERV 13 filtration solutions to 3 HEPA air purifiers. And this study concludes at the end by stating, as we discovered in the test results, lower efficiency air filtration by combining off-the-shelf components, HVAC filters, in tested DIY configurations compares favorably in performance, clean air delivery rate, noise, to the tested HEPA air purifiers. Again, they're focusing on the CADR, the clean air delivery rate. So they tested 3 HEPA air purifiers, and they said they tested the best in class HEPA purifiers, but these 3 units are not the best filtering HEPA units on the market. One of the HEPA units tested was a Kowei Air Mega 300, and I think it is a good unit for the money, but it is not an upper echelon HEPA air purifier. Ditto the smaller Kowei Mighty they tested as well. They show a graph where the Kowei 300 is the most expensive unit by far of all the solutions tested. They have it listed for $549 in this graph. However, this is not an accurate price at all, as we can get a Kowei 300 for much less money, as it was only $359 on Kowei.com at the time of making this video. And here is the pricing scale on the side. So on this graph, the actual Kowei 300 price is right about here, and certainly not way up here. So the Kowei 300 pricing is overstated by 35% in this graph and in this study versus what I currently see online. And they have the Kowei Mighty AP1512 listed as $229. But we can actually get this unit for only $159. Again, off of Kowei.com. So the pricing for the Mighty on this graph would be right about here. So this graph and study present the solution to be 30% more expensive than the current price. So the main title, Can 10 times cheaper, lower efficiency particulate air filters, etc., etc. It may sound good as a title, but the MERV solutions are not 10 times cheaper. And actually, a Kowei Mighty at $159 is really not much more expensive than a CR box with 4 good MERV 13 filters, depending on which brands we go with. So the prices of the HEPA units are overstated, which makes the CR boxes look more attractive, especially from a visuals perspective in this graph. Maybe the units cost more money in the past, and if that's the case, then the pricing in the study needs to be updated, because some folks are referencing it today in its current form without the current pricing. And I know the pricing of Kowei air purifiers do tend to fluctuate over time, but this study seems to have the 2 units at abnormally high prices. Then we look at the filtration performance of the HEPA units, and the 3 HEPA air purifiers all filtered better for 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, and 1.0 micron size particle concentrations than all the MERV solutions they tested against. These are the 3 HEPA units with the higher filtering percentages of 0.3 microns. But they will say that these are just single pass filtration performance metrics, and more air exchanges by the MERV solutions with the stronger airflow will enable them to filter better than the HEPA units. They will say the units with the higher CADRs will filter better regardless of the other variables. So they estimated the CADR for the units for 0.3 microns. And they figured that out by taking the CFM of the airflow of the unit times the filtration efficiency for 0.3 microns. For example, the Nordic Pure 2-inch MERV 13 filter on fan speed 3 has an estimated airflow of 664, and its 0.3 micron filtration percentage was 59%. So 0.59 times 664 equals 392. So they give it an estimated CADR of 392. So with the estimated CADR numbers for the solutions, they provided this graph. And for some reason, they left out the Kowei Mighty unit, which filtered the 0.3 micron size particles the best out of all the solutions. But it is not on this graph. So the Kowei Mighty would be right about here, as they estimated the CADR number to be about 216. And the 0.3 micron particle filtration percentage was the best of all the HEPA and MERV solutions at 97.4%. So the red line for the Mighty would be around here. But again, the CADR number would be down around here. All that said, the CADR is not the most important variable to consider, as this example will show. According to their data, the Nordic Pure 2-inch MERV 13 filter for only $35 has a CADR of 392 on speed 3. Now, this is a single MERV 13 filter attached to a box fan. So, according to this peer-reviewed study, it will filter better than all three of the HEPA units on speed 3, because the 0.3 micron estimated CADR values for the three HEPA units are only 265 for the Kowei 300, 216 for the Kowei Mighty, and 354 for the AGH 550. Well, if we look at the ratings.com test for the Kowei Mighty versus the CR box with a single MERV 13 filter, and it was a 3M MERV 13 filter in the test, no less, which is supposed to be one of the best manufacturers of MERV filters, we can easily see the Kowei Mighty with only a 216 CADR filters much better than a CR box with one MERV 13 filter, which according to this study would have about a 392 CADR on speed 3. In the ratings test, the Kowei Mighty filtered much better than the MERV 13 solution at 0.3 microns. At 37 minutes into the test, the Kowei Mighty is filtering the 0.3 micron particle concentrations 93% better than the single MERV 13 filter solution, which has about a 45% higher CADR number according to this study. And we're talking 93% better. Not a little bit better, but the Kowei provided massively better filtration for 0.3 microns, even though its CADR number is almost half of the MERV 13 solution. So it wasn't even close. And that filtration testing result is the opposite of what the peer-reviewed study is inferring by choosing to focus on the CADR values. Now, like I've said in the past, I don't think a single test for air filters will tell us all we need to know about a solution. And most all tests, especially amateur tests, are not perfect. That said, the ratings.com test results between a Kowei Mighty and single MERV 13 filter provide the opposite results that CADR enthusiasts would expect or claim to be true. So how can we claim that the CADR is the most important variable and it is 100% accurate and correct all the time when figuring out which air filtration solutions filter the best? I mean, as we can see, I don't think we can just look at the CADR numbers to try to figure out which air purifiers filter the best. And this peer-reviewed study really stressed the CADR numbers very strongly, as though they were the most important variable. So they can provide estimated CADR values on the units. However, according to the ratings.com test, when it comes to the actual air filter's performance in the real world, their higher CADR values may not be a good judge of which solutions actually do filter the best. And on top of that, if we look at it from another angle, this peer-reviewed study is also saying the single MERV 13 filter solution and box fan with a 392 CADR will also filter better than a $950 IQR Health Pro Plus and a $750 ARIS 3-in-1, even though both are EN 1822 certified, but neither of them can have a CADR as high as 392, because the CADR numbers will always be lower than the highest CFM numbers the units produce, according to the way they estimated the CADR values in this test. As we take the CFM and multiply it by the filtration rate to get the CADR value. For example, even if the IQR Health Pro Plus filters at 99.97% at 0.3 microns, 0.9997 times 300, 300 being the Health Pro Plus's highest airflow rate, well, that only equals 299.9. And the ARIS 3-in-1, even if it filters at 99.98% at 0.3 microns, its highest airflow rate is 390 CFM. So 390 times 0.9998 equals 389.9. So according to this peer-reviewed study, since the $35 single MERV 13 filter and fan have a CADR of 392, it will somehow filter better than both the IQR Health Pro Plus and the ARIS 3-in-1 because both of their CADR values will be lower. Now, the ARIS air purifiers, incidentally, got purchased for $72 million by iRobot a few years ago. But apparently, all iRobot had to do was strap a MERV 13 filter to a box fan, and their CADR rate would be higher than the ARIS 3-in-1, and therefore it would filter better, according to some people's logic on CADR. So iRobot could have saved themselves 72 million bucks, right? Well, I guess they should have researched it a little bit better. That's a joke. I'm just kidding, as I don't think a single MERV 13 filter attached to a box fan will filter better than either an IQ or Health Pro Plus or an ARIS 3-in-1, regardless of what CADR numbers people come up with for each solution. I really don't think it's that simple. So it looks like there are some issues with the CADR numbers, values, and some of these peer-reviewed studies. This study and the graphs they chose to use kind of highlights how you can focus on certain metrics to make the CR boxes appear to filter better versus various HEPA solutions, even though that may not be true at all. I mean, they lean heavily on the estimated CADR scores as if it's the only performance metric that matters. But there's more. Then the document says the people who conducted the testing are not air filtration testing experts. Number one, right here it says, the resources and information in this article, the content, are for informational purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. And I'm cool with that. And then they say, you should seek independent professional advice from a person who is licensed and or qualified in the applicable area, which basically means the people who conducted this peer-reviewed study are not experts. They also stated in the document, number two, the HEPA air purifiers were chosen to be a selection of models known to be most quiet or well-reviewed. So most quiet and well-reviewed by whom? What resources did they check? Because they didn't choose the best HEPA units on the market, and they don't seem to know what the best filtering HEPA units on the market actually are. Number three, the tests for the HEPA air purifiers were conducted on November 11th, 2021. However, the tests for the CR boxes and MERV 13 Solutions DIY air purifiers were conducted on January 10th to the 13th, 2022. So there were over 8 full weeks in between testing the HEPA units and the CR boxes / MERV solutions. Now, the air sources for the tests was outside air being fanned into a room through an open window. So they filtered the outside air for their tests. But people have to realize the air quality index outside changes by the hour. Actually, it can change every 15 minutes or even sooner, let alone 8 weeks later. I currently much prefer controlled environments and controlled amounts of contaminants being dispersed into the air for these types of tests. This is how the professional third-party labs perform their tests, and even many other YouTube air purification testing channels will do the same. For example, Ratings.com, HouseFresh, and Vacuum Wars will all try to use similar quality air in their tests for different air purifier solutions. Most all of them actually try to control the amount of contaminants in the air so the units get tested in a somewhat equal manner. Because if we open a window 8 weeks later to bring air inside, that air is probably going to be of differing temperatures, and it will also probably possess different relative humidity levels as well. And the accuracy of the testing equipment can be affected by both. And of course, the air outside 8 weeks later will probably have differing amounts of particle concentrations in it as well. So I'm currently not a fan of this type of testing method. I could change my mind in the future, but for right now, I just see too many uncontrolled variables involved. And here, they admit they were working with limited resources. Number four, they said, traditional methods that measure the effect of the air purifier and its CADR using the decay rate of aerosols generated or injected into an isolated, unoccupied room require greater investment of time, effort, risk of inhalation of the generated aerosols, and training / expertise compared to the much simpler DIY test methods described here. We use ambient aerosols to rapidly compare different filters, fans, and configurations with low-cost measurement tools available online, example Amazon. So earlier, they basically stated that they are not testing experts, and here they state that they had limited resources for their tests, and they said they performed a much simpler DIY test with low-cost measurement tools. So these are all reasons why I currently regard these peer-to-peer review tests as being performed by amateur testers with amateur testing methodologies. And I do think it's awesome they were forthcoming with some of their limitations, as this is very important for folks to realize. I understand they conducted the test to the best of their abilities with the resources they had available, and I'm not knocking the folks doing the test, but I am going to say that we should never treat this type of test and its results as if they are coming from experts with state-of-the-art equipment and first-rate testing methodologies. Yet some YouTube channels out there pretend the results from some of these peer-reviewed tests and studies like these are coming from professional expert third-party testing labs. And that is obviously not the case, as sometimes they are literally telling us this themselves. And remember Jim Rosenthal from earlier, the owner of Texier Filters, who says MERV 13 filters filter better than all HEPA filters at all particle sizes? Well, he writes here in one of his blog posts, all of the research has confirmed the initial tests done several years ago. The Corsi-Rosenthal boxes, with their higher airflow, outperform HEPA air cleaners. A more efficient filter does not result in more efficient air cleaning. Here is a partial listing of the peer-reviewed articles that have been written on the effectiveness of Corsi-Rosenthal boxes. And he included in his list of peer-reviewed articles all 3 of the peer-reviewed articles we just talked about. All 3 of them, okay? And as we saw, one of the peer-reviewed articles was actually run by his business partner, his buddy, Richard Corsi. So we can't really say that's an objective peer-reviewed study, now can we? So no, I would not say this group of peer-reviewed articles proves that CR boxes filter better than all HEPA filters at all particle sizes. Not at all. Mr. Rosenthal appears to be trying to leverage these amateur peer-reviewed articles, and even one conducted by his buddy, Mr. Corsi, just to support his overall narrative. So each air purifier test and study must be analyzed for its accuracies on a case-by-case basis. And these are all reasons why I am putting these type of university and scientific peer-reviewed studies and test results into Tier 3. It appears that at least sometimes they're being conducted by amateur testers, providing results and opinions based on data gained from amateur testing methods with limited resources. From what I've seen in just a few of these studies, the folks involved seem to be inexperienced at testing HEPA air purifiers in general, and they also seem to lack experience with standalone HEPA air purifier solutions as well. They don't seem to be familiar with many of the HEPA units on the market either, especially the upper echelon ones. And sometimes it seems like they're actually trying to intentionally make the MERV solution test results look good in comparison to the HEPA solutions. Also, sometimes when the study says no conflicts of interest, that couldn't be further from the truth. Okay, please click on this video here to learn about the next tier, tier number 2, on my air purifier industry source rankings list. I'll see you there.